Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Spartan Nation Radio. I am your host, Hondo Carpenter, and as always, we're glad to bring in, as we go around the world of college football, the one, the only, the great one, the iconic wonder himself, Matt Hladek from thespun.com. Matt, how are you, bud?
I'm doing great. Huge weekend on the gridiron as usual.
Matt, we're going to start with the obvious. Obviously, around here, this is a very big subject. Your thoughts on the Michigan State collapse?
Listen, I was not surprised that they lost to Penn State. I think I predicted 27-14. They ended up being 28-7. It's just been more of the same. The offense has not gotten on track now for a couple of seasons. And, I think, like you had said, I think it's fair to question what's going to happen moving forward under Mark Antonio, or if he steps down and there's a new coach, or what the direction of the program's going to be. I mean, you can appreciate everything the last 10, 12 years have been, but also to look a little bit to the future, because right now it seems like they're just spinning their wheels.
Totally agree with you. Let's go quickly to Oklahoma's loss to Kansas State. We both thought the hire of the new Kansas State coach from North Dakota was a great idea. What do you think of the job he's doing and the win that Kansas State got?
Well, it's never easy to take over and replace a legendary coach, and he's kind of handled that transition seamlessly. They're now 5-2. They are going to, barring a mess of collapse, they'll be in a bowl. They have their signature win over an undefeated team, over a national title contender. I really don't think you can say enough about the job that Chris Clean is doing right now. You got a team ranked 22nd in the country. So I think Kansas State hit a home run with that hire, at least the way you look at what the early returns are.
Totally agree with you. He is the great Matt Hladek from thespun.com. Joins us each and every week to go around the world of college football. What did you think of Urban Meyer's return to Ohio State on Saturday?
I thought it was fun. I've said that I think he's a really good game analyst. Pre-game analyst, because he's in the studio or on site. I think his insight is excellent. I thought it was great to see him back at Ohio State, and it's a program that he's always going to be synonymous with, and his influence will always be felt there. And then on the field, I think that Ohio State has been the most impressive team in the country thus far through the first 2 months of the season, frankly, it might not be close. I mean, Alabama is undefeated, and they're still Alabama, and no one's beat Clemson yet, even though they've struggled in some games. But I think Ohio State has been the best team in America through the first 2 months.
What do you think of the job Tom Allen's doing at Indiana? And then after you talk about that, how about Fred Glass, the AD, taking a shot at the Cornhuskers staff?
Yeah, I think when you look at Indiana, it seems like almost every year in the Big Ten recently, no matter who the coach has been, they're in the same space. And they win 4 or 5 games. They push 1 or 2 of the elite programs, but they can't get the upset win, and then they miss a ball game. And I know Kevin Wilson did get them to a bowl or 2, and so they need to get over that hump, so to speak, under him. But now they're 6-2. They are on the receiving votes in the top 25, and they've already clinched bowl eligibility with 4 games left. So not only has Tom Allen handled the 2 programs you need to beat in the bottom East with Maryland and Rutgers, he's now won at Nebraska, which is never an easy thing to do, and he's already clinched a bowl bid. I think he's done a tremendous job. And then on to Fred Glass. This was really interesting in the aftermath of that win over Nebraska on Saturday. He mentioned basically what I just said, how they were sick of talking about being close and almost being in the bowl game every year. They wanted to get it done. And then he said that knowing Nebraska's staff had no respect for our program, it was gratifying to clinch bowl eligibility against them. And usually, you don't see a coach or an administrator be that brutally honest. And I thought it was very interesting. I thought that it was, you know, on his part, I liked it. I liked the kind of brashness. I liked the fact that he called out Nebraska in the aftermath of winning that game.
Totally agree. We're talking to Matt Hladek from thespun.com. Matt joins us each and every week to go around the world of college football. Matt, talk about 3 of your coaches on the hot seat.
Yeah, every week we have our featured 3 coaches on the hot seat, and we had Jim Harbaugh there for a couple of weeks, but now we've got Mark D'Antonio on after Harbaugh's big win against on Notre Dame on Saturday. Also have Will Muschamp, South Carolina, which is pretty crazy to think about considering South Carolina just a couple of weeks ago had a huge win over Georgia, but they got blown out at Tennessee. It seems like, you know, Muschamp, whatever goodwill he mounted from the Georgia win, is starting to slip away. Mark D'Antonio, we talked about here endlessly, the best coach in Michigan State since Duffy Daugherty. Tremendous amount of accomplishments. Overall record is still fantastic. He's almost 60 games over 500 in Michigan State. But it might be time to think about the transition or think about the future when you look at, you know, what's happened with that program in the last 3 or 4 years after the college football playoff appearance. And then Chad Morris at Arkansas. Arkansas, listen, it's a tough spot to win because of the fact you're in the same division as Alabama, in the same division as LSU, Auburn, and since 2012, Texas A&M. So it's maybe the toughest division in America, that or the Big Ten East. However, we've seen coaches at Arkansas, we've seen Brett Bielema and different guys have relative amounts of success and make bowl games and be competitive. Chad Morris hasn't won an SEC game in 2+ seasons at the 2+ seasons at Arkansas. Overall, he has a losing record, 20 games under 500 as a head coach. So we knew this was a little bit of a risk taking him from SMU, but it has not worked out thus far.
I got to tell you, I think SMU was glad he left with what they got in Dykes, and I think Arkansas absolutely made a bitter mistake. Scott Frost getting called out for what he said about his players at Nebraska. Who's calling him out, and what did he say?
Yeah, Scott Frost, we've talked about, you know, coming into the season, how the different expectations that were placed on Nebraska. I thought that I thought that they would be a little bit better than they have been thus far. He calls out his players after the game. He called out the mentality on them, saying how they have worn hoodies before the game to warm up against Minnesota the week before in the cold, and basically saying that he wanted to be a little bit tougher. But then he got called out because of the fact that he was wearing a hoodie when he said this, although it's not on the field, it was in a press conference. And also, the other thing he got called out on is, in the grand scheme of things, that stuff doesn't necessarily mean that big of a deal. You just got to win the game. Doesn't matter what you warm up with. Doesn't matter what you what you wear before the game. It's what you perform on the field. And he also mentioned some of the guys' toughness, saying they don't have enough tough-minded players as well. So they're struggling a little bit to get some footing at Nebraska.
I want to remind you, on this show, when they were talking about bringing him back, did I or did I not tell you there was trepidation in him? I think he would have taken the Florida job before the Nebraska job if it had been offered. I'm just telling you. I find this fascinating. I think Frost is a great coach. I think Nebraska is a great program. It's going to be interesting to watch that. Brian Kelly was brutally honest after the loss to Michigan, and then I got one more Notre Dame question. We'll get you out of here.
Well, he certainly, there was nothing he really could say but be brutally honest. That was one of the worst performances, I think, of the Brian Kelly era, and I think that was one of the worst performances we've seen from a team in a big game this season. They just, from about 3 or 4 minutes into the game, through the final whistle, they just got their teeth kicked in. Nothing went well for Notre Dame. They didn't execute in one phase of the game. Nobody stood out offensively, defensively, special teams. The coaching staff looked unprepared, looked like Jim Harbaugh and Don Brown pretty much knew what they were going to do and took it away from them. And Brian Kelly said they were better. He basically said this with his quote. He said they're better in all phases. We didn't coach well enough. We didn't play well enough. There wasn't much, in depth to say. It was just a night to forget if you're a Notre Dame fan, a Notre Dame player, and coach.
I know that fans are called fans because they're fanatics, but in 20 seconds, what do you think of the people in South Bend that want to fire Brian Kelly?
Listen, I don't think there's any reason to fire him. I understand there's some disappointment with how the team's played in some big games, but here's the thing. In my opinion, unless you're getting Urban Meyer in there for whatever amount of money he wants and whatever little restrictions that he wants, you're not getting anybody that's really going to win more than Brian Kelly has. Because Nick Saban isn't going there, Dabo ain't going there, and none of those coaches are going there.
I agree. Matt Halatic from the Spun.